Michigan State adds 2 kids to their 2025 class. Where will they fit in the future? And then where does Michigan State fare in the Kelley Ford projections? Well, it kind of depends on how you look at things. All right, let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On Spartans, your team in green and white, at least 3 days a week in June and July. Like last week, we did 4 episodes, but yes, every other month of the calendar year, 5 days a week, point blank period. If it's going on in East Lansing, we talk about it here at Locked On Spartans. All right, you ever want to reach out? LockedOnSpartans@gmail.com or comment below on YouTube. It really just, whatever you do, just have a great start to your week. And thank you so much for tuning in. All right, let's get into the meat of the show here. We've got 2 commits that we got to talk about. One happened Friday. One happened about 2 minutes before we just hit this record button. But we're going to talk about them both. We're going to rewind all the way to Friday when Braylon Collier, yes, a 6'1", 170-pound receiver out of Sandusky, Ohio. Well, he committed somewhere, guys. You could probably figure it out. He committed to your Michigan State Spartans, also canceling visits later on to Iowa and Iowa State. So look at Michigan State putting a dagger in the Corn Belt right before the weekend starts. Now, this kid can ball. Obviously, he's not playing Power 4 football for no reason. 18 touchdowns last year on 80 catches. That is not too shabby for a Perkins team that went 13-1 last year. They reached the Division IV quarterfinals down in the state of Ohio. And, of course, speaking of Ohio, this is a very talent-rich state when it comes to high school football. We've known this, especially during the Mark D'Antonio era. How many times did Mark D'Antonio go down there, pluck a nice little 3-star, they turn into an absolute gem, and then bring Michigan State to the golden era of what we know as modern-day football here at Michigan State. All right, Braylon Collier looking to be the same kind of guy. Yes, he's a 3-star on Rivals, on 24/7 Sports, on 3. 24/7 Sports has him ranked as the number 33 rated overall kid in the state of Ohio. Again, I know it's not top 10 or anything, but Ohio is talent rich. I mean, that is no secret in the world of recruiting. He is also the number 133rd wide receiver per 24/7 Sports. And like I said, guys, he's not taking visits to Iowa, Iowa State, but those are some other offers that he had out there as well. Now, the fine folks over at Spartans Illustrated, first of all, go subscribe to them over in the Rivals Network, but they did a great in-depth piece on Braylon Collier's commitment, and I love this quote here. He said, quote, "There are no egos in the program, just hardworking, humble people all around. Something special is being built in East Lansing, and I'm excited to be a part of it. I knew MSU was home for me after my official visit." So this didn't happen last weekend, but the previous weekend, the first weekend of official visits here for Michigan State, and bang, it was enough for him to sit on for about 5 days, realize this is home, and you guys know how this all ended. He commits to Michigan State. Now, going back to Michigan State recruiting down in Ohio, Braylon Collier himself made a mention of this too. This, again, from the Spartans Illustrated piece, quote, "I think it's very important to establish that Michigan-Ohio pipeline. We've got some dogs here in the Midwest and Ohio that gets overlooked. I'm definitely going to help recruit the guys in my class and try to bring in as much talent as we can to get into East Lansing." I mean, just to rattle off some names at the top of my head, like guys that were 3-star athletes down in the state of Ohio, didn't get Ohio State offers, but instead came to Michigan State and made great careers for themselves and were a cornerstone in that great era for Michigan State football. We're talking like Terrion Hicks, Marcus Rush, Le'Veon Bell, Jarrell Worthy, Dan France. I know I'm missing a ton of guys. But hey, you know what? How about this? Go ahead and comment below your favorite Ohio recruit Michigan State has ever gotten. And if it's, hey, Braylon Collier, no one's going to knock you for looking into the future here because, yeah, when you look at his tape, you're seeing a lot of greatness there. Again, 6'1", 170 pounds, so it's not a massive bodied receiver. But we've seen that you don't have to have this giant stature to make it count here in East Lansing. Just look at last year. Montorie Foster, He clocks in at a smooth 6 feet tall. How about you look at the year prior to that? I mean, Jaden Reed, just 5'11", but he got it done at wideout. However, I see Braylon Collier, and I'm sure the coaching staff sees it this way too, making his hay in the slot early on in his career. We'll see where things net out once he's an upperclassman, but right now, maybe for 2026 as a sophomore, he will slide into that slot. And that's not to say he can't play wideout. I mean, just go ahead, watch his film for yourself. You're going to see a lot of Jaden Reed-esque plays where he high points the football. He absolutely embarrasses whoever's on him in single coverage. But you also get a lot of plays, too, where he is just whizzing right by his guy down the hashes on the sideline. It doesn't matter if they're bringing over a safety for help. According to the Spartans Illustrated piece, this guy runs a 4.4 40-yard dash. That is lickety split in the world of college football. How about that for some hard-hitting analysis right there? But, hey, at Oregon State, what did Jonathan Smith and Brian Lindgren make sure they did in the last few years? That is profile that slot receiver position. I mean, it's not just last year, right, guys? Because last year, Silas Bolden and Anthony Gold, they combined for 108 catches. They were the premier receivers in that offense. Two guys that weren't even 5'10". I mean, this is going away from the strategy. You got to be a big body receiver to make something work in college. You know, even back to 2019, over at Oregon State, it's guys like Colby Taylor, Ty John Lindsay, Trevin Bradford, undersized guys, but that is just what they want over in East Lake. So that's not to say they don't have room for big body receivers. They already have them with Nick Marsh, Antonio Gates Jr., Jalen Brown. So that's why for this class, they're focusing on the smaller, speedier receivers. You got it right there with Braylon Collier. So not only do you already have the guys like Nick Marsh, like Antonio Gates Jr., for example, or Jerron Glover, should he stick around until 2026. I mean, that's a pretty packed room over at the X and the Z. All right, guys? I mean, both wideout spots are taken. So where can Braylon Collier find room early on in East Lansing? It will be right there in that slot. So just to take another peek at the 2026 wide receiver room, Jerron Glover, Antonio Gates Jr. will be redshirt seniors. Juniors will be Nick Marsh, Isaiah Johnson, another slot receiver. At least that's how it's projecting so far based on what we saw in the spring showcase. Sophomore, Braylon Collier. And then the quarterback, could be Aiden Childs, although we've long said that hopefully it's not Aiden Childs. Hopefully he's not here for his senior year, because that means he's done so well this year and his junior year that he is high up the draft boards, and then he leaves. Of course, NIL could play a role. I wouldn't be the most upset person in the world, but that's a different conversation. Or could it be Alessio Milivojevic? Could it be Rylan Jesse? Could it be Leo Hannon? Could it be someone else? I don't know. But hey, that is how the wide receiver room is looking to shape out, not for this year, not for next year, but we're just talking about Braylon Collier's sophomore year. Yes, of course, freshmen can make an instant impact. We're about to see it on the football field this fall with Nick Marsh. But with just how much talent is already in that room for 2025, might be a little bit before we see him. But yes, that is a nice pickup there for Courtney Hawkins, who, of course, he mentioned really connecting with. Says that he could beat him one-on-one in basketball. So we'll see if that event ever unfolds at IM East. But until then, at least you got a wide receivers coach that he trusts to bring him to that next level, because that is certainly in the sights for Braylon Collier. So nice little pickup for Michigan State before the weekend. We're going to talk about who they picked up after the weekend. We're going to go into the trenches here. But first, hey, need to talk your ears off about LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you got to go check out LinkedIn Jobs. Now, LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster. And guys, my favorite part, for free. On LinkedIn, did you know that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours? Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn, because they know that as a small business owner, you are wearing so many hats, you are juggling so many responsibilities that you might not be all geared up and ready to go make the best hire for yourself. So just leave it to LinkedIn. Just cut out the funny business, trust the professionals, and join the 2.5 million small businesses that use LinkedIn for their hiring. Again, guys, post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That is linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. I'll say it one more time, linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Sticking with the offensive side of the ball, but kind of the opposite end of the spectrum as it comes to build of players. We just talked about a 6'1", 170-pound receiver. How about out of Southern California, Drew Nichols clocking in at a smooth 6'5", 270 pounds for an interior offensive lineman. That is right. Just like maybe the background noise you hear right now, he is going to buzzsaw through defensive lines. That's right. We're still doing some work over here at the house. Hopefully it's not that loud over here. Nevertheless, we keep trucking along here. Guys, he is the number 96 interior offensive lineman per the 24/7 Sports Composite. He has offers from Miami, Arizona State, and he also had plans to visit Boise State and UCLA later this month. Guys, this commitment pretty much is going to shut all that down right here. He is going to be a Spartan. He is going to join with Coach Jim Michalczyk, a guy that he has had a pretty good back and forth relationship with here for quite some time. So what do you get out of this kid? He is, well, just like we said, an interior offensive line, can maybe bump to the outside because that frame at 6'5", 270 pounds, that's a lot of meat to work with. Let's not get it twisted. But it has been clear so far this recruiting cycle, if you just look at who they have on for visits, who they plan on having on for visits, you get one of the priority interior offensive lines for this staff. They have only slated 3 official visits for interior offensive line. Darius Afalava, the top-ranked kid in Utah. Houston Kahani Torres out of Hawaii. Hopefully I did an okay job with Houston's name right there. But that is the 3 interior offensive linemen they are having on to visit this whole month of June. They're making it crystal clear, hey, guard, center. We're not even paying attention to anyone else. So it's kind of a roll of the dice. I mean, they're really going kind of all in on these 3 guys, so to speak. But if you can nab all 3 of these guys, that's a really strong recruiting class. And then if you combine it last year with more interior offensive linemen like Charlton Linieski, like Rakeem Johnson out of Boise, Idaho, and then transfer, I guess is what we'll call him. Really, it's kind of a commit, but 4-star top 200 player Andrew Dennis. Again, if you could tack on Torres, Afalava to this Nichols commit, those are 6 guys within a 2-year span for your interior offensive line that you feel okay about. And this is kind of the discussion where we give the offensive line coach the benefit of the doubt and really just trust his eyes. It's been well stated on the West Coast that Jim Michalczyk is one of the best offensive line coaches out there. And I know with the last guy, Chris Kapilovic, we took a lot of people's word for, hey, this is one of the top offensive line coaches out there. All right. Didn't necessarily ever see it materialize here in East Lansing, but here we go again. We got to trust people that Jim Michalczyk is a strong offensive line coach, that he has a certain eye for offensive linemen. I mean, if you just want a good example, your starting center this year, guys, Tanner Miller, that's a former walk-on. Coach Michalczyk turned him into a midseason All-American last year. It's going to be a lot of trust that we have. But speaking of Coach Kapilovic, there was a quote that he gave on the SD4L show before last season that really resonated with me because the offensive line has more, I feel like, diamond in the rough finds than you'll find at any other position. Of course, you could find, a 2-star receiver, turn him into a day 1 draft pick, right? It happens with quarterback time and time again. I feel like with offensive line, it happens more times than not, or more times than any other position, I should say, where you get a low-rated 3-star guy, kind of like Drew Nichols, a guy that right now is ranked outside the top 1,000, and then turn him into a really strong offensive lineman. And the reasoning that Coach Cap gave in that interview when it came to spotting prospects for the offensive line is that a lot of these times, these guys are going to come into college, add 20 pounds, add 30 pounds, change the way that they are weighted. Let's say they're already coming in at a smooth 280, but it's more muscle, less fat. Maybe the weight's distributed somewhere else on their body. So within 2 years, by the time they're starting to contribute on a college field, how do they move? Do they move any differently? How does their body hold up? Can they stay injury-free? It is hard to project offensive linemen. So what do you do if you're a well-experienced, a highly tenured coach like Jim Michalczyk? You probably build a formula of your decades of coaching offensive line. You probably know exactly what you are looking for when you're on the recruiting trail, and that's where you land on Drew Nichols, a guy that is top priority. Of course, you have a 4-star that's high priority, Darius Afalava, but Houston Torres, he's another kid, 3-star that, hey, they are going all in on. This is not, again, guys, where they are just having 10 interior offensive linemen on campus. They're just going to throw a net over them and say, all right, let's see what fish swims to us. I hope that we get 3 guys. No, they are going all in on these guys. So hope that made sense there with the diamond in the rough sort of thing. I know that, you see a guy rated outside the top 1,000. You're like, what the hell is going on here? Like, this isn't going to do anything for us here in the future. That could very well not be the case, as it often is with offensive line. So more on his commitment, which I found fascinating. Again, guys, Spartans Illustrated, always doing great work with in-depth recruiting and commitment pieces. Drew Nichols is a SoCal kid. Like, he grew up right outside of San Diego, right down to that border. What is his connection to Michigan, right? Well, it turns out he does have a family connection to Michigan State. He has not 1, not 2, but 3 uncles that went to Michigan State. So to speak, they were kind of, doing some legwork for Michigan State too when it came to recruiting. It wasn't just, Jonathan Smith, Jim Maholchek. No, Drew Nichols had this family in there, in the trenches, recruiting for the Spartans. So he's excited to visit family in the state too. And also, guys, what do you think of when you think Southern California? Palm trees, perhaps, perfect weather, always 80 degrees, sunny, light breeze coming off the coast. Well, it's got to be hard to recruit a kid away from, right? Not Drew Nichols, who made a reference of this, because he said, quote, "My favorite part was seeing the green and the different weather. Coming from California, I'm not exposed to a lot of different types of weather. I thought it would be fun to go to a school that has different climate than Southern California." So bang, right there. This kid's a lot tougher than I am. Probably maybe a lot tougher than any of you are, but hey, you know what? For those that absolutely love Michigan weather, love the fall, love the winter, because we know that there's a great contingent of Spartan fans that absolutely love Spartan weather, go ahead and add Drew Nichols' name to that list. That guy is not running away from the grind. He wants to come and play in November when it is 42 degrees, 20-mile-an-hour winds, sleeting sideways. So welcome. Drew Nichols, can't wait to have you. Again, guys, like, that is going to be a strong nucleus, back-to-back classes with 6. Hopefully, we're fingers crossed for Darius Afalava and Houston Torres that we can get those for the interior offensive line in back-to-back classes. So what does this do for Michigan State here? This adds 7 commits to the 2025 class. Of course, they are all 3 stars right now, as we all know. But guys, this faults Michigan State per the 24/7 Sports Composite. So this is combining all the recruiting sites into one big stew. Where do they all combine? Michigan State right now is up to 51 nationally. And I know, don't roll your eyes. I know it's not a sexy number. Okay, but 2 things. That's not going to stay there. I mean, a lot, if not pretty much all but 3, I think, schools in the top 40 have double-digit commits. Like, for a lot of this, yes, talent does matter when it comes to making the formula for recruiting rankings, but so does number of kids too. Michigan State isn't going to stay in the single digits. Nevertheless, we'll keep it moving forward. Guys, if you want like an off-season banner to raise right now, if you just want to rib, the rival in your life, and I can't believe this is true, but you can look this up for yourself right now. Michigan State, like we said, just vaulted to number 51 overall in the nation. Number 52 is your reigning national champion and arch rival, the University of Michigan. I'm not going to claim to pay any attention to recruiting over there in Ann Arbor, but it's going so well that they are currently slotted 1 behind Michigan State right now. So that's some good momentum right there for your reigning national champions. They have 5 commits. They are all 4 stars. Of course, that's not going to stay that way. They are going to jump inside the top 50 eventually, but at least for now, Michigan State is ahead of Michigan in the recruiting rankings. So I'm not keeping my finger on Michigan. I can't imagine that could be like the happiest thing for fans to read over there. Nevertheless, so look at us go. If not for at least one day in June, we're ahead of them in the rank. I'm just puzzled by that. I don't know how it's been going like that after a national title. Nevertheless, guys, we got some numbers to talk to. Kelley Ford, one of the great college football lines out there, came out with a whole list of projections for this upcoming season. What does it mean for our Spartans? Well, of course, we're going to get into it. But first, you need to talk your ears off about FanDuel Sportsbook. Guys, hey, summertime means baseball, but NBA Finals, Stanley Cup playoffs, and you could bet on it all at FanDuel. You could also get a head start too, guys, on the win totals for Michigan State or any other Big Ten team or Power 4 team that you like in the nation. You like Aiden Childs to win the Heisman? You want to get nuts? Right now, currently listed at 200 to 1 on FanDuel, so sprinkle a little bit on that if you're ever so inclined. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That is $200 you could use on anything. Finals MVP, who's going to hit the first shot? Also, parlay it with, you know what, who's going to hit some dingers over at Comerica Park? Probably not the Tigers, but that's okay. Go ahead and parlay it all over at FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and add a big win to your summertime bucket list. That's FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, let's keep rocking and rolling here into the projections now. KFordratings.com. For those that don't know, they do incredible work during the season, but also before the season. They have projections. A lot of it is computer-based. We're going to rank and project how we think the season's going to go. They rank all the FBS teams. And guys, in life, when I am given the opportunity to start with the bad news or start with the good news, I always start with the bad news because I want to leave the conversation on a happy note. So please humor me here because we're going to go through like what's not fun about K Ford's rankings right here. You know what? And then we're going to leave with, okay, well, what's a good spin zone? Or not even spin zone. What are some patent facts, too, inside of these numbers that KFordratings.com has? All right, hope everyone's sitting down. Because what's not fun is that out of the over 100 FBS teams, K Ford has Michigan State, your football Spartans, at number 74 overall before the season. If I could add even more negativity onto that, and don't get mad at me, get mad at the rankings, that is the 6th worst in Power 4. 2nd worst in the Big Ten. Only Indiana is behind Michigan State. They're coming in at number 82. And guys, just to bring that up again, Michigan State 74 overall in the country going into the season. Do you know who's one spot above them? Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns. That was going to be your Week 3 opponent this year. But luckily, that game is not going to happen. Luckily, you're getting Prairie View A&M because the last thing we need is for this schedule to be any harder than it is in year 1 with Jonathan Smith. So talk about a blessing. Thank you, Ragin' Cajuns, for not playing that game. So to keep the Eeyore cloud rolling here, K Ford has you at the 2nd toughest Big Ten schedule. Guys, we are facing 4 teams that are inside their top 30, and 3 of those teams are in the top 10 in the nation. All right, we're talking number 2, Ohio State, number 3, Oregon, and then number 7, Michigan. Yes, we've talked about September being a friendly schedule. We've talked about November being even friendlier, which we'll get to here in a little bit. But man, let's make no mistake that October gauntlet is what it is. That is 4 teams inside the top 30. So they also broke it out percentage-wise. All right, percent chance to win this many conference games. The highest percentage for K Ford is 2 conference games. They're giving us a 32% chance to win 2 conference games, 27% chance to win 3 conference games. So guys, that is a 59% chance to win 2 or 3 games. All in all, K Ford is giving us a 24% chance at going bowling. All right, 24%. This conversation does get better. I hope you haven't turned it off by now. This conversation does get rosier. All right, we tried our best here. But I'm just going to go through the percent chance to win each game so far this season really quick. Get your pen, get your notepad out because we're going to rifle through these. All right. Week 1, Fort Atlantic, 72% chance to win. Week 2, at Maryland, just a 24% chance to win. Against Prairie View A&M, a 98% chance to win. Then Boston College on the road, they're not ranked that high. They're 72. They're in our neighborhood, but on the road, that's a 45% chance to win. Back-to-back weeks, Ohio State at home, and then 6 days later at Oregon. Both those games, a 2% chance to win. And if you ask me, that's probably 2% higher than I would give Michigan State. Sorry, I'll try to be more positive. Now, the Iowa game at home, we've called it coin toss-ish. K Ford gives you a 21% chance to win that game. We'll talk about the Iowa game a little more. The Michigan game, few weeks ago, I said I give Michigan State an 8% chance to win. That somehow upset some Michigan fans on here. They said that was way too high of a percentage, proving that not even a national title can make those people happy. Kelley Ford gives them a 3% chance to beat the Wolverines. All right, hopefully that's a low enough number for all the cranky Michigan fans out there. Now we get into November. 57% chance to win against Indiana, 41% chance to win against Illinois on the road. Then your last 2 home games of the season, coin toss against Purdue on Friday night, 47% chance. And then to end the season against Rutgers, a 37% chance. So those were all the predictions, all the percentages out there. They also rank individually offense, defense, special teams, where each team ranks. And guys, Michigan State coming in at number 122 on the offensive side of the ball. And this is where we get into the fun portion, the rosier portion of this conversation, because I'm going to turn that 122 offensive ranking into a positive. I'm going to try my best here because, like, I get a lot of this has to do with, just numbers. I don't think this calculates, going from a crash test dummy to an actual offensive coordinator in the offseason. I don't think that's calculated into it here, but that's what we got here at Michigan State. So, guys, like, no shot Michigan State can be that bad at offense, right? Like, I have a hard time believing that they're going to be the 122nd best offense going into this year. New quarterback. You feel okay with your skill position players, if not pretty good about them. You have a coordinator that can scheme it up with the best of them. I'm not saying Michigan State's going to be a top 10 offense. I don't even know if they're going to be a top 50 offense. But surely they're not going to be 122nd, right? I mean, my goodness gracious. Now, for the other projections, the defense projects at number 32 overall in the country. That's not bad. Special teams gets even better, guys. Number 9 overall. You got the punter Ryan Eckley, who could just bang the hell out of the ball. You got Jonathan Kim, who can also do it too. And this isn't even factored into these numbers, but guys, we don't have Ross Els anymore on the sideline, baby. That's right. We are not getting 3 pre-snap procedural penalties every single game. So that's how you get in the top 10 for special teams. All right. Now, let's not just look inward. Let's look outward, too. This year, Michigan State will face 8 teams that are not in the top 70 offensively. All right? Maybe these are rock fights of games. Maybe more than just the Iowa game is a first team to 20 sort of game. But 8, 2/3 of your schedule, they are not in the top 70 for offense, guys. And that doesn't even include Prairie View A&M. So it's actually a little more than 2/3 of your schedule. Now, let's look at November here. Okay, November sets up nice. We'll say it again. Indiana, Illinois, Purdue, and Rutgers. Rutgers is the highest projected ranked team you face. They clock in at 50. They'll have a strong defense this year. They got pretty good special teams too. But Indiana, Illinois, Purdue. Let's look at that cluster of 3 teams. The Indiana, Illinois, Purdue cluster. All their defenses rank outside of the top 40. All their offenses rank outside of the top 70. And just for a cherry on top, their special teams all comes in outside the top 60. So, guys, I know that we're projected to only win one of those games. I mean, the Purdue game is a coin toss. The Illinois game on the road, 41%. But, man, if Michigan State can just get humming somewhat offensively, those percentages have to change during the year. Right, guys? And just to go back to that Iowa game, why is it only at 21% for Michigan State to win at home against Iowa? Well, their defense projects to be the 2nd best in the country. No surprise there when it comes to Iowa football, right? But the opposite end of the pendulum here, guys. 118th offensively. Now, I know that, I could be a big hypocrite. I just talked about, hey, how can Michigan State be ranked 122? And I could just blindly say, well, surely it won't be that bad. Their offensive coordinator hire was Tim Lester, right, guys? There's a little bit of a difference from Brian Lindgren and Tim Lester. I'm not calling Brian Lindgren, the Mike McDaniel of college football, that he's just the greatest schemer in the world, but go watch Oregon State last year. Surely it's going to be better than whatever's going to be going on at Iowa, at least on the offensive side of the ball here. So, guys, yes, I know that did not start happy. I know that we just said that, well, they project as the 6th worst Power 4 team. They got a 24% chance at going to a bowl game. But, hey, you also got to look outward. I think we can look at November and still smile. October, not so much unless you want to look at Iowa's 118th projection for offense. But even the start of the season, guys, you know what? You could see 3-1. You could see 3-1 if you squint really hard and look at that 45% chance against Boston College and flip the coin. Comes up heads, Michigan State wins. All right, guys, we will be back tomorrow. Brendan Moore of Spartans Illustrated, he joins the mix. A few weeks ago with Maxwell Klitsky, we did, all right, position group by position group, who got better on the defense. Tomorrow with Mr. Moore, we are going to be talking about the offensive side of the ball and a few other little fun nuggets. But until then, hey, keep it tuned, Locked on Spartans, your team in green and white. Love you all. Go Green.